Welcome to the Smart Property Investment Show with your host, Phil Tarrant.
Okay, everyone. Thanks for joining us on the Smart Property Investment Show. Pleasure for you to be, again, tuning in to what's going on in property. And it's always funny when I look at approaching a particular podcast, how the line of questioning I'm going to take. And if you are a regular listener to the show, you know that there's no agenda with this whatsoever. And every podcast is unique and different. And there is no preconceived ideas where a podcast is going to go. And I think today's going to be one of those things. And it's good. It's the way I like it to be. And every property investor has a different story. And my job as a podcast host is to make sure I extract that story as good as possible. Our guest today in the studio, who's driven all the way from Moree, and for those of you, we're recording in Sydney here. Moree is, it's going to test my geographic knowledge. I'm going to say about 6.5 hours away, 7 hours away? 9 hours.
8 to 9 hours drive, depending. We do the stop, revive, survive, so it takes us longer.
That's very sensible. So, by the way, that's Jillian Stewart, who's our guest today from Moree. Moree is sort of northwest, correct?
Yeah, northwest, we're an hour down from the Queensland border.
There you go. Yeah. Okay, I know.
But nowhere near the coast.
Nowhere near the coast, so it's quite a long one. So if I head out to Moree, do I see green fields or do I see desert?
Well, it's pretty dry all the way along. Moree's actually better than most areas because we have had some rain. Like it's horrific coming in. But yeah, Moree's still very dry, but nowhere near as bad as a lot of the areas.
What happens in Moree?
Cotton.
Okay.
We've got an earth moving business, and so we basically develop cotton farms, and cotton is one of our number one, cotton and grain, but cotton is the main thing that Moree's known for, as well as the artesian water, because we sit over the artesian basin, and so we've got the hot pools. We have people from Sydney and all over the world come to Moree all the time just for the hot water.
Is it like therapeutic?
Yeah,
stuff?
yeah.
I've never done it before. I've heard about it. But
It's amazing. It really is. And we were actually lucky enough that we used to have bores that were open all the time, so you could just out in the middle of a paddock, and that's what, bore drains, livestock. Most of them are capped now, just so that they don't have the evaporation and wastage. But people come there and swear by it religiously for the healing powers of the water.
Is it like hot or is it?
Yeah. It's naturally about 42 degrees.
Okay.
And it is, you've got to get used to it. You've got to get out after 10 minutes. But in winter you get out and you're warm, and in summer you get out and you're cool. It's amazing water. It really is.
Okay. Is it like full of minerals and all that sort of stuff, right?
Yeah, there is. Yeah. And I don't know what the mineral content is. We actually, and at our place at home, we have bore water. So it comes from the ground. But ours is only like 50 metres down, whereas the water from the hot pools is 2 or 3 kilometres. So really deep, really hot. And obviously it cools as it comes up. Yeah. But, so it would be much, much hotter originally.
So I've got no idea about cotton farming or how you go about preparing if you've got an earth moving business, what an earth moving company would do. Is cotton farming flat or is it on hills?
It's pretty much flat. Cotton is a very, very delicate plant, very spoilt. It doesn't like to be too hot or too cold or too wet or too dry. And so we level the fields with a slight slope, so they water from one end and it just slowly moves to the other end, gets caught, goes back in a channel to the dam to be reused. Okay. So we build dams to hold the water, channels to run the water, level the cotton fields, pads, the whole works and jerks.
That's pretty sophisticated.
It can be, yeah. And there's a lot more to it. You would think it's pretty basic because you drive a tractor with a laser bucket behind it, but no, there's a lot that goes into it. So the
right gradient for the right fall of the water to get to a point where you're going to get it back up without pumping it too much.
And how fast it needs to go. There's a lot to it, and the water, like I say, the cotton doesn't like to be wet, so if you've got a hole in the paddock and the water gathers there, you won't get very much cotton. Like the quality of it'll be poor, the plant won't grow properly. And there's a lot of money involved in it. Like cotton's big business.
It is big business, and you're obviously on the show to talk about property investment, and we'll get there in a sec. But is it a good time to be a cotton farmer? Like, how's Moree? What's the vibe around town like? Is everyone sort of heads in their hands, or?
No, it's pretty tough. They ran out of water for last year. We have Copeton Dam, which is near Inverell, which is where all the water comes from. And I mean, obviously, we can get runoff from the local farms if we have good storms, but we didn't get any storms at all last year, basically. Copeton Dam is down to about 20%.
Okay.
So when it's 20%, the cotton farmers don't get any allocation. So at the moment, no one's got any water, basically, to plant next year.
So if there's water, everyone's happy. Like,
If there's water, everyone's
does
happy.
it change the vibe of the town?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
And so at the moment, because it's May, June is when you plant wheat, and a lot of the when I say smaller farmers, but the privately owned farms grow dryland dryland wheat, oats, barley, chickpeas, whatever else.
Yeah.
But there's no subsoil moisture to plant that, and they're the local farmers. The cotton farms can be owned by multi-million-dollar conglomerates, whereas the dryland farming is normally owned by smaller family farms. And so there's virtually nothing being planted because there's no subsoil moisture, no rain on the horizon, and they put people off.
Yeah. So what do people do to make a buck then? How do they keep going? Best they can.
Yeah, basically, it's like being a gambler, really, being a farmer. Further out west at Walgett, and it's really tough out there. They've had no rain whatsoever, and no good crops for years, and they're walking away. Like, there's no cattle, there's no sheep. And I grew up on a farm at Come By Chance, which is between
Come By Chance.
Come By Chance is a real place.
Yeah.
The people on
great.
one side of the street don't talk to people on the other because it's a cemetery on one side. But there's a population of about 8 there.
Okay.
But, there's it's just dry. They miss out on the rain, and you can go years without having any good rainfall. We used to bath in the bore when it was dry. And so we'd go and there'd be like 5 or 6 cars in a line, and that's when you'd wash your hair and, have a good bath, because when you were at home normally you'd have 2 inches of water that everyone would share because there just wasn't the water to have.
This is, I live in a little bubble here in Sydney, and it just reminds me of this discussion that Australia is a big place that's very diverse, and what you're talking about is like real Australia. What you see here in Sydney, is not real Australia, and it's what most tourists that see and think Australia is like. But to put it in the context of property, property just isn't living 10 kilometres from the city is what you're experiencing.
It is so different, and the lifestyle, and we were only talking about it today, as it took so long to drive the car because there was so much traffic and so many roadworks, and it takes so long to get to such a small distance. And people refuse to leave Sydney or the bigger metropolitan centres because they're not going to go out to the country. But we have so much to offer out there. Yeah. A teacher gets the same money in Sydney, or actually gets more in the country because they'll get a Western area's subsidy.
Yeah.
And, 400,000 will get you a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom house with a pool. That you shouldn't be trapped to stay in the capital cities thinking that's all there is.
Yeah, and the good news is that the government is hoping or is currently investing in rural areas to try and make them more attractive, but there's still a lot of criticism around it, right?
They say.
Well, what's the view in Moree? Does everyone sit there and think, big city politicians don't really understand what it's like out here?
Oh, definitely. And they don't, and it's a little bit like, we talk about the water and the coal seam gas. We have a lot of issues with coal seam gas, not in Moree Plains Shire, but at Narrabri, and they're drilling for coal seam gas in the Paliga Forest, and that can affect the water table. You take out the water table in Moree, like our water, all our town water, and our house water all comes from the Artesian Basin. The Moree's tourism is all related to the Artesian Basin. You drill for gas and you contaminate that water, you basically wipe out a town. And you have a look at what has happened around Dalby and Tara in Queensland, southern Queensland, and the cancers, the illnesses and sicknesses that are blamed from the coal seam gas is amazing.
It's highly politicised and polarising. I remember, I think I saw it on, it was either Q&A or one of the TV programs, where just how it's completely polarising communities, where people are pro coal seam gas and there's a lot of people who are anti coal seam gas, and you need to look at some of the motivations of the people who are pro and con. I don't have a position on it, but it's tough for these rural centres, because not only it's the health ramifications around it, if they do exist, and I'm not educated enough to offer an opinion on it, but what does it do to people's wealth as well, or their ability to generate income? And we're here to talk about property prices.
Well, if you have a look at Dalby, say in Queensland, and the gas came there probably 5 or 6 years ago, and a lot of contractors went there and made a lot of money. And so, they built houses left, right and centre, and property prices went through the roof, similar to a mining town.
Yeah.
And now they've got, nearly brand new houses for, $200,000 that are sitting there empty because no one wants to buy them, no one wants to live in them, there's no jobs. And that's what happens when, the gas comes in and goes out.
And this is one of the challenges, and we talk about a lot on the Smart Property Investment Show about investing in regional towns or regional centres, which are primarily based around a particular one economic activity, whether it's extraction of gas or whether it's some sort of other mining components. And there is risks and rewards associated with that. Jillian, let's have a chat about what you do as a property investor. So you obviously own property, Moree.
Yes.
Yep.
So I guess my family were on a farm at Come By Chance, and when I was 1, my parents bought a block of land over at Stewart's Point, but near Kempsey, and that's where they were going to build their, their retirement home. And it was and I can't think what it was called, but it was like a village construction. So they bought the block and they had to build a house on it within 5 years to populate the village and whatever else. And so I've actually bought that off Mum now. So that was 45 years later. But so my parents have always liked property. And I've always been interested in it. And I remember I was 18 and found in the paper a block of land at North Arm Cove, just up from Hexham. And it was $6,000, and so I decided I was going to buy this block of land because it was
Hexham on the
Newcastle,
north
Newcastle.
of Newcastle, yeah.
And anyway, so I was going to buy this block of land, and it's on the coast, it's up from Newcastle. How can you go wrong? So I went and got a personal loan for the money, and went to the solicitors, and the solicitor said, "Look, there's no building rights on this block. I don't think you should buy it." So I said, okay. So I didn't buy it, kept my personal loan, had a really good time for 6 months and wasted all that money. And I actually worked with a contractor when I was working at council probably 5 years ago. There's still no building rights on that block 40 years later, or 30 years later. But anyway, so when I got married, we bought a house. We then, when we had child number 2, bought another house and decided that we would self-manage our first house, and had no idea what we were doing. How hard is it to collect rent and write a receipt? So, and then we had tenants in there. We didn't know about, in doing inspections and what our rights were and whatever else. And so we ended up selling it because it just didn't get looked after. And that was our first house. You always love the first house you live in. And I always say you should never rent a house that you've lived in just because nobody looks after it like you do. And it's really depressing to go back and see people not care because it's not their blood, sweat and tears. So, so anyway, we fast forward. We live on 6 acres just out of town. Yep. And we bought...
It's just out of town for you, like 30 kilometres?
No, it's literally 10 kilometres out of town.
Okay, because country people see the world very differently than our city.
Yeah, five minutes is 10 kilometres, whereas here, 10 kilometres is an hour and a half. Yeah. So anyway, we then bought 6 acres across the road. My mother-in-law was looking at moving to Moree, and so she bought the block across the road, and we got a deal if we bought 2. And so that was basically our first step really into investing in property. Okay. And they had a house at Hervey Bay and couldn't sell it.
Hervey Bay in Queensland.
Yep. Really, really lovely house overlooking the water.
It's near Fraser Island, right?
Yeah, it is. At Craignish, which is, I guess, on the northern part of Hervey Bay. Yep. And, 3 levels, 2
like a nice house.
Amazing house. Big deck and whatever else. But they couldn't sell it. So we ended up buying half of it. Okay. Which then gave them the money that they could build a house in Moree and whatever else. So, and that was our first step into property rather than a vacant block.
Okay. So fast forward to where we are today. What's the portfolio look like?
So the portfolio, we have just exchanged on property number 15 and a half, I guess you could say.
Okay.
So my husband makes the money.
Yep.
And I spend it.
Seems to work.
So, and he's not he is not big on property. but I guess
He's got a pretty big portfolio, so
he does.
He's got
but he doesn't know what he's got or how much it's worth or anything like that because he's just not interested in it.
So you've gone from buying half a house in Harvey Bay and a block across the road from you and a bit of a false start with your original owner-occupier that you turned investment property to 15 and a half properties. So what period of time from the half a house to where we are today?
The half a house was 2009.
Okay.
And then we actually bought that in our company name.
Yep.
And didn't tell the accountant. The accountant then rang and said, "Oh my God, Jill, you don't buy it in the company name because you don't get the capital gains tax exemption." And I went, "Oh, okay." And had no idea. And it's funny, because that's nearly 10 years ago, but I just think about how much knowledge I didn't have back then compared to what I know now, and I'm sure there's still so much that I don't know.
Yeah, and it's good. There's still so much I don't know. I don't know about tuition basins in Maureen. I've learned a lot today, and it's great. I'll go check it out. But so where have you secured these sort of 13 other investment properties from? Where are they?
Our next one after that we bought in Moree.
Okay.
So, which is, brick, 3-bedroom, 1 bathroom. Yeah. And then 13 months after that, we bought 4-bedroom, 1 bathroom in Moree.
Okay.
And then probably after that was when I bought the house from Mum at Stewart's Point.
Yep.
That's still only a 2-bedroom fibro shack.
Yep.
We then, after that, bought at Moranbah.
Okay. I remember a headline on Smart Property Investment from about 3 years ago that said...
don't buy in Moranbah?
No, it said Moranbah... It was probably the most read story ever. I can't remember exactly. It was something along the lines of Moranbah collapses as houses do whatever. So did you buy at the top of the market?
No.
Okay.
And my husband actually grew up at Dysart, which is probably 80 kilometres from Moranbah. And we've always known that mining runs in cycles.
Yeah.
And we sort of said, this is the bottom of the market. People are going broke everywhere. Now's the time to buy in a mining town because that it will cycle up again.
Yeah.
And so we looked at Dysart and Moranbah, but the houses in Dysart, a lot of them that were for sale hadn't had any maintenance, and because it's in a mining town, it's very expensive to get anything done or fixed. Anyway, so we bought the house in Moranbah, and the guy that did our building report rang me and said, "Oh my God, Jill, your house is on 60 Minutes this weekend. Make sure you watch it." And the woman that had owned it had actually was featured on 60 Minutes for going bankrupt and had 8 properties, I think.
Yeah, I think I remember.
Yeah.
So what'd you pay for it?
So 127.5.
All right.
And so the sale price before that, I think, was about 360.
Yeah. What's that worth now today?
I would think it's probably about the 190.
Okay, so it's gone up a bit.
Property is going up in Moranbah.
Yeah.
So, and that was start of 2016.
Yeah. So you bought it after everything came down. A lot of people unfortunately lost a lot of money. A lot of people went bankrupt and blew their dough. It's going to set them back potentially for life.
Exactly. And we spoke to...
I remember that story on 60 Minutes. She had, how many did you say? 6 or 9?
I think it was
properties?
6 or 8 or something
like that.
Had a lot of
properties.
It was about $6 million worth. But, I mean, and I don't know if you've ever been to Moranbah.
I haven't.
There's nothing there. Like, it's a town in the middle of nowhere. It's got an international airport. But without mining, there is nothing there. And I just think you've got to look at the intrinsic value of a property, because I know the caravan park, I think, went into bankruptcy as well. And the guy had bought it for $4 million and, I mean, was making a fortune in the middle of the mining boom.
Yeah.
But $4 million will get you a caravan park at the coast. You've just got to look at the intrinsic value of it.
It's to the point I made earlier, was a risk and reward mining towns. Yeah, personally, I don't touch mining towns purely because I'm not in the business trying to speculate at the bottom of the market. It sounds like you've probably picked it at the Moranbah at 127.5, and it's probably not going to do much. But I imagine the yield's okay.
Well, we started off, and it basically we spent 3 months just doing bits and pieces to it. And then it sat vacant for another 3 months.
Yeah.
But we sort of said for the amount of money that we paid and how much it cost to hold, we could afford to keep it for a while. But it rents now at 170.
Okay.
It was 150, it's 170, and they've just suggested that we put it up to 200.
Okay.
So, because things are picking up. The Adani mine is...
Yeah, again, which is highly politicised and polarising.
And may not come come about. So, but I mean, at the moment, it's paying for itself, and we'll just keep holding.
There you go. Okay, so we're after Mooroombah. It's testing your memory.
It is going to test it because I seem to always forget
If you don't
one.
get the order right, it's okay. But
we've bought a house at Inverell,
okay,
which is also northwest New South Wales. It's east of Moree.
yep.
So
That's a big regional centre though, Inverell.
It's about 10 to 12,000
Yeah,
people.
for-
Really good
yeah,
shopping,
yeah,
compared
okay.
to Moree. But
Yeah.
and we then bought a duplex at Tannum Sands.
I have no idea where that is.
It's south of Gladstone.
Okay, I know what
So
Gladstone
it's
is.
like
Yeah.
the coastal touristy part of Gladstone.
Okay, cool.
So, and then we bought a house in Mackay.
Okay. Again, it's a lot of proposed stuff to go on in that area.
Well, Mackay, and I mean,
That's a big
it's a
centre.
big centre.
Yeah.
And there's still a lot of sugarcane, there's a lot of cattle, tourism. And the one we bought at Mackay is not far off the water. It's less than a kilometre off the beach.
Cool. Another house then.
House.
Yeah.
And then we bought another house in Moree.
Okay.
And then we bought 2 units in Gladstone.
Okay. That's
And
quite a lot.
then, how many am I up to?
I'm going to count that as 10, 11, probably 12.
And then we've just bought actually another house in Mackay, but this one backs onto our other one.
Okay.
So it's an adjoining house, different street, but that then gives us between the two 1,500 square metres, roughly.
Double frontage.
Yeah, double
Okay.
frontage.
So potentially a development side of the point.
Yeah,
Should you want to go that way?
So,
Okay. All right. Is
and
that
then-
it?
And then, but we're in the we've just bought a shouse.
A share house, is it?
No, a
Oh,
shouse. It's a shed house.
a shed house.
And it's actually at Boomai, which is a town of about 100 people.
Is a shed house where you're not allowed to have a house, say you build it inside a shed?
Well,
or
you're
it's
allowed
a
to
shed,
have.
but it's a house?
It's a shed with a house built at one end.
Okay.
But we've bought that in our company name,
Where is it? Boonai?
Boomai, B-O-O-M-I.
I have no idea where
It's
that
got a
is.
population of, it's 30 kilometres from the Queensland border. It also has artesian water, and but it's a workhouse. We bought it for work purposes.
Okay.
So,
So you'll use it?
Yeah, we'll use
Okay.
that one. But we're paying rent at the caravan park at the moment, so we decided to pay a mortgage rather than rent.
So you work up there and you
Yeah, we
put,
live-
put
it's-
guys in there and stuff? when
Yep,
they're-
yep,
okay.
exactly.
All right. So what construction work's going up in Boomai?
So we've cotton farm work.
Okay.
So because once a cotton farm's set up, you still have to maintain it. So we're doing maintenance work now.
Okay, and that's for cotton farms all over the joint?
Yep.
Okay, so you go up there, you spend time, or you permanently park someone in there
Well,
and say, go
no, we'll probably be. We normally do somewhere between 4 and 6 months a year working up there,
Okay.
and so we've just.
Sort of makes sense, so you instead of renting, you buy a joint and...
Well, we had 3 caravans at the caravan parks, $375 a week.
Yeah,
So we paid $140 for the house on 12 acres.
and you just...
We'll
fill
just
it
put
up.
the caravans there and people in the house, and so instead of paying rent,
How many guys do you have on the tools working, sort of?
At the moment, with staff and contractors, there's about 9 or 10.
Okay.
So it sort of depends how busy you are and what jobs you've got going.
Is it hard to find good...
Yeah, very hard.
Yeah.
And we've advertised.
Because you've got to get them out of the mines, right? Because typically
No,
they're
no.
sort of...
Well, if you can, I guess mine people don't like to work privately because we don't pay as much money as the mines do. So, but and a lot of we do our own maintenance and things like that. Whereas if you work on a mines, you're not allowed to do any maintenance at all. But it's sort of anyone, I guess, with common sense that that wants to work and is happy to go to Boomai.
Yeah.
So-
Many people are happy to go to... What happens at Boomai on a Friday night?
Not very much.
Is there a pub and stuff? And a Chinese restaurant?
No, there's no Chinese restaurant. There's a pub and there's a shop and there's hot pools and
Yeah.
whatever else. But it's a really close knit community.
Yeah.
So everybody, they play sport. They have mud trials where they have mud bombs once a
Okay,
year. The
that's cool.
Australian Championships.
Really?
And, yeah.
Is it a tough town? There's a lot of tough towns out that way, or is it just the way it is?
It's just how it is, and people are happy living there. And like I said, it's a really good community.
Yeah.
You've got to go into Gundawindi or Moree to do your shopping.
Oh, just great names, isn't it? Gundawindi. where did you grow up? What was it?
Come by chance.
Come by chance. Yeah, just so Australian. It's
And it's really funny. I remember when I was living in Sydney when I was a teenager and seeing in the paper they had building blocks that come by chance, and they were advertising the large building blocks, the fertile soils, thriving communities, $500 or $600 I think they were at the time, and I just think, these people, someone from Sydney's going to buy that and think that they're going to make $1 million, and they're just not.
Well, it's a really nice segue, I guess, like the ground truth. People going, oh yeah, I'll go and buy something because I read it in the paper, but you got to go and check it out and have a look and be on the ground. And one day I've driven up to Queensland through the New England highway. It sort of touches what we're talking about.
Yeah,
but
you go through Tamworth
inland.
that way, where you just go further inland to us.
But it's such an interesting, unique part of New South Wales and Australia. It's one day I'll just lurk around there for a couple of weeks to see what's going on, because it's as a city slick. I don't know what you call us. I'm sure there's plenty of derogatory names of people that live down in the Big Smoke, but it's still called the Big Smoke.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. There's a lot of sort of romanticism about the Australian regional areas or outback, whatever you want to call it, and the reality of it's often hard to turn a buck in the regional towns of Australia. Or it's boom and bust, or it's a feast and famine, or whatever you want to use. So if you are investing in these areas, yourself, you're pretty heavy in Moree. You've got 3 or 4 places.
Yeah, and we bought one. The last one that we bought in Moree is actually, we bought it for workers, because we have men come in, and it's really hard to find accommodation. And so we have actually bought it and furnished it for men that work for us, so they've got somewhere to live.
And then you rent it off yourself, essentially.
We just, essentially we just rent it out to them for $100 a week or whatever.
So you have a purpose outside of the fact of investing in property for the purpose of going up in value.
Yeah, that's right.
And I have no idea what's happening in the Moree market right now. Is it?
It's not a. It gives you a great rental yield.
Yeah.
But it's a very slow market. So
if you looked at.
And I have got a property in Deception Bay.
Okay, I was going to say
that's my one capital city purchase.
Deception Bay is good.
Yeah, no, and I really like that area.
Yeah, and that's been an attractive market for quite some time, and people have been investing in there. So you're probably not going to go too bad. I was actually going to say, if I look at your portfolio, some of this Moree stuff or Boomy, did I get Boomai, sorry. There's a purpose in owning those assets outside of just as an investment.
It hasn't been just done on numbers, like the one we bought at Hervey Bay, and we bought that just so that Scott's parents were able to move to Moree and build and whatever else. And
so again, it's not purely just numbers.
No, it's not.
But if you look at the purpose of investing in property is to create wealth, and how do you create wealth? You either pay the debt down as quickly as possible, or these assets grow in value as quickly as possible, a mixture of both. Where do you see your wealth creating assets in the properties that you own? Deception Bay, I think you probably do pretty well out of over time.
Yeah, and I think the two in Mackay will be the two that will really go ahead. It's a great location where they are, and they were pretty cheap, and they just can't. Mackay was so far down, just like Moranbah and Gladstone, that they're still. Gladstone and Mackay, they're still on the coast, they're still on the highway going north, there's still other industries apart from mining, and I don't think they'll ever get to be as low as what they are now. And I was actually looking at Gladstone probably the middle of last year into houses when I really started to look, and I went to make offers on 11 different properties over a week, and they all went under offer. The amount of money that's gone in and people are buying, and I couldn't, all the cheap properties went. And I mean, obviously people had to sell, but, there's been a lot of movement in the market at Gladstone.
So you spoke about your accountant gave you a hard time about buying half a house and a company name. Yep. Is he or she a Moree local? They're
based in Tamworth, which is probably 3 hours away.
Okay.
So, and they're our business accountants, so they're not necessarily property accountants. And I know I listen to your accountant on the show all the time, whereas our business is our earth moving business is our primary concern. Yeah. So we have our accountants based around that, and the property's sort of, I guess, incidental to it.
And what do they think about this portfolio you've created? Do they get what you're trying to do? No. Do they provide you good advice or recommendations around it?
No, basically not. I've just set up MyOb for the property, because some of them, there's a couple in the company name, and with the changes to depreciation laws, the next few that we buy will be in the company name. But
is that your recommendation or your accountant's recommendation?
No, that's mine, because apparently when you buy in company, you know that you can't claim your old chattels and fittings and whatever else because of the changes from the budget last year.
I'd probably get some advice around that if I was you.
No,
Yeah.
I've asked. I've actually spoken to BMT about it, and the companies, if it's owned in a company name, there's no changes.
Okay. Well, BMT know what they're doing.
Yeah,
so.
and that's exactly right. And actually, the property at Tannum Sands, I signed the contract on the 9th of May last year.
It was a budget.
The 9th of May, and they signed and dated the contract the next day.
Yeah.
And it's 18 months old. Property's 18 months old. So we missed out by that much.
There you go. You got to keep an eye on it. So why property? Like, taking aside the fact that it gives you some utility in ensuring that your team has somewhere to live when they're working on site. What you've got a passion for it. You can see you like talking about it.
Yeah, I do. I love it. I like the security. And not just the financial security, but that they always have somewhere to live and be safe and warm security.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've got 4 kids, and so it's going to provide security for them later. But it just means that I can buy something so that they can be secure. If they move to Brisbane or wherever they may go, that we can buy property and keep them housed and safe and secure. And it's security, not just financial, but that whole well-being security.
Do they get what you're doing?
Yeah,
Do?
The girls particularly. Jasmine's actually saving. She's turns 18 in April next year, and she's in year 11 now, so she'll be in year 12.
That's cool.
So she plans to buy a property within the next 18 months to live in.
Great.
And then
really?
Yeah. She's got money.
Jump on the mic quickly. You'll be right. Just come out. Share this one with your mum. So I've just asked Jasmine to come on the mic. I think a bit reluctantly, but what do you think about your mum and your dad doing all this property stuff?
I really like watching it.
Yeah.
Watching their investments and the way she does it. I feel like she's very knowledgeable.
Do you reckon she knows what she's doing, do you?
Yeah.
Why do you think that?
I've watched from the first house, and it just keeps going. I ring her and she's like, "Oh yeah, I just bought this house." And I'm like, "Oh my god."
That's cool.
And yeah, she watches the market, and you go home and you see the ASX on TV, and you just the share market, the house market.
Yeah.
I do economics, and
So you're at school in Sydney, so you're bored. Yeah. Okay.
I do economics, and my economics teacher bought a house in Mackay, and I was sitting there, I was like, "Oh, miss, the Mackay market's going up," and she was like, "How do you know about that?" I was like, "Oh, Mum has a house there," yeah.
That's cool. And you're going to buy a house yourself soon, one day, yeah?
I want to buy a house, live at home till I'm 30.
Okay.
Own a few houses.
How does that
I
sound?
have something to say about that, but anyway.
Own houses, just.
Yeah. Where would you buy if you could?
I think I'd buy a house around Moree just so I could live in it, because I really like the community in Moree.
Yeah. What are you going to do when you grow up? What's when do you finish school? What are you in year 11 now,
Yeah, 2019 I finished school.
What are you going to do then? Back to Moree? Or?
Yeah, I wanted to go into business management.
Okay, cool. Well, there might be an earth-moving business you can manage. But
I don't think I could give up control of that.
Is that part of your plan? To would you welcome the kids into the business? Maybe?
Yes and no. I
Depends,
think that sometimes there can be a lot of pressure to go in and work with Dad and be like Dad. And I think everybody, even if that's what they want to do, because my oldest son works with us.
Okay.
He actually spent a year in Sydney last year. I don't think it's a good idea to leave school, work with Dad and stay with Dad. They need to go away and work with other people and be independent. Yeah. But, I mean, he loves what he does. And so, yes, I can see that transitioning. I've got 4 kids, transitioning off to him later. And that's part of the reason we've bought some of the houses in the company name, so that when we go to retire, we'll just make the kids shareholders and hand the company down to them, basically. And they'll each own a quarter and hopefully keep building on that.
Sounds like Mum's sort of got this sorted out.
Yeah, she has a game plan in mind.
I do. I think ahead. That's why I don't sleep sometimes, because I think too far ahead and worry too much.
That's cool, but you're fortunate that you're in a position that you can plan for your future, your retirement, whenever that is and whatever that looks like. But also, there's the upside benefit of options for your kids as well. So
that's exactly right. And like I said, I actually went to the Brisbane Property Buyers show in May, which was fabulous. And but I learnt so much and was so excited about it, just to see what we can do for the kids. And I was talking to actually the managing director of the expo, And we were saying about how when kids are brought up around investing in property or the share market, that it becomes second nature to them, and so that's where they expect to go. And it's not a matter of how much money or education that you or your parents have. It's where the expectation is and what you're used to. You know, we invest in property, so my kids are fluent in investing in property. They know all about it. They listen to it at the dinner table.
Yeah.
So that's what they will do when they grow up. And I mean,
Yeah, I think that's really healthy. And one of my criticisms, I guess, of the world that we live in today is that there's a lot of people that go through life with excuses about not being financially literate, and I think there's no excuse for that. I think the responsibility starts at home. It does. It's not teachers to do it.
No.
I've got young girls, and I'm already teaching them about money, even though they're still really young. That's where it needs to happen, and it's that financial literacy is what sets people up for life.
I agree totally. And my kids, they're one, and I don't care what they do when they leave school, what jobs they have, as long as they are gainfully employed, put back into the community by volunteering and helping out and whatever else. But my only rule was they had to do commerce in year 9 and 10 as their major subject, because regardless, money makes the world go round, and it just gives them a basic understanding that they may not have otherwise. My kids have it, I guess, because we talk about it and deal with it all the time.
Yeah.
I've just hit Jasmine up for all the money in her savings account to put into super so she gets a government co-contribution.
Cool.
So she's broke, but they'll get that. That's a 50% return on their money for this year.
Where do you get your money from? Do you get it?
I work at McDonald's.
Excellent. How long have you been at Macca's?
This year's my third
Really?
year.
Okay. I think that's another really important thing to get.
3.5 years, yeah.
I started working when I was 14. Had heaps of jobs. It's such an important.
And all my kids have they're all really good workers.
Yeah.
But the rule has been that I always took half of their money and then they could spend the other half. And so it goes. They've all got a share portfolio, which is where their money's parked, waiting till they buy property.
Direct. So like you just got
yeah.
Well, you got shares in Jasmine. Do you know? Or bit of CBA.
So she's
Mum's got under
NAB,
control.
Woolworths, QBE.
Okay.
We were looking at it when we before.
We're only looking at it when we're here waiting. But, it's better than sitting with the interest that you get at the bank.
Yeah.
And it gives them something to have an interest in.
Yeah. Look, Jilly, I really enjoy the chat, and I think tuning into this and it goes back to being a parent. I think parents have a duty, care and responsibility.
I agree.
If you take one thing from this podcast, if you're not educating your kids around money, I think it's a great opportunity, and property is a really good vehicle to do it because it's very tangible. To try and explain stocks and shares to a kid is quite difficult, but to say that house there, you buy that house good, and then over time it will grow in value because of all the economic stuff. So it's a really good.
Look, and they understand that. And can my husband left school at the end of year 10 and I dropped out of school at the end of year 11. So neither of us have a university education. So it's not like we've grown up with a silver spoon in our mouth or had anything given to us. It's just a matter of common sense and hard work.
And there's no excuse not to be educated either. In today's day and age, there's podcasts, there's
exactly.
property shows, there's
and
whatever.
There's so many books and the internet's out there, where it just never was before. But people just have to take responsibility for themselves.
There you go. I'm going to close on that, Jillian. Jasmine, thanks for joining us. Sorry to throw you in the deep end, but I thought it was a good opportunity to do it. But keep in touch, Jillian. Let us know what you're doing.
Yeah.
All very cool. Be interested to see. Sounds like you're going to keep going. So
definitely.
Next time you're down in Sydney, let me know. And
well, I just said to Jasmine, we were talking about the property because I'm planning on buying Sydney probably in 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
And I actually drove when I came in yesterday. I had to pick up some slate sealer for my floors at home through Penrith, and I went down Luxford Road. Yeah. And I thought, I'm sure Phil Tarrant's got property here at Luxford Road because I hear it.
It's a big street,
big
road, Luxford Road.
And it's quite funny where I turned into it, and I've got no idea where it was. And it had the really nice gardens in the median strip. As I went further down, the gardens dropped, and then it went to lawn, and then it went to weeds, and then it was definitely, Housing Commission houses.
Yeah,
and
Luxford Road's like a journey through the western suburbs of Sydney. It's from like St Mary's all the way through to.
From one end to the other was completely different.
Yeah. We've done well.
Those properties in Mackay were actually ex-Housing Commission, and so was the one at Deception Bay.
Cool.
So
sounds good. Really interesting stuff. Thanks, Jillian. Thanks, Jasmine.
We didn't even talk about cross-collateralisation
or
principal and interest,
I think we'll have to do
all the stuff that I did wrong.
No, we'll have to. We'll do that next time. Next time you're down in town, we'll talk about that sort of stuff and managing your properties as well, because I imagine that probably comes with us a couple of headaches. But If you like Jillian's story, go and check it out. We'll write some stories up around this as well. smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. If you're not subscribing yet to our daily morning market intelligence, so you're first to know what's going on in property and property markets right across Australia, smartpropertyinvestment.com.au/subscribe. If you like getting your info from social media, just search Smart Property HQ. And if you like what we're doing, those 5-star reviews on iTunes or wherever you're listening to this, we do appreciate them. So please keep them coming. Any questions, editor@smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. We'll be back next time. Until then, bye-bye.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.